and I'd like to extend a really warm welcome to my talk on the way to a stakeholder's heart, measuring the success of your CTI program from a basically really cold and dark evening here in Oslo, Norway, which is way up north in Europe, if you're not familiar with it is. I am really bummed that I can't be with you physically in the US. But I'm basically looking forward to engaging with you in the chat after I'm done. So we'll just kick it off here. So my name is Freddy Murstad. I'm the Senior Threat Intelligence Analyst at what's called the Nordic Financial CERT. And that's a non-profit organization in Norway, which covers 5 countries in the Nordic region. Before that, I worked as an intelligence officer in the Norwegian Army, and currently I'm preparing to start my PhD, and I'm going to research the cross-section of intelligence as a program and CTI cyber threat intelligence. And you'll basically see this through my talk today and what I'm going to talk about. So the PhD, I'll start in April. A little fun fact about me, I like to play with dolls. And I guess I quickly have to just show you what I'm talking about. And that's that beautiful thing you can see behind me, but it's also on the presentation right now. I collect Star Wars action figures. It's not dolls, if I want to be really correct on that one. I just want to do one thing, and that's basically in the resource tab or a resource channel, I just put in some links. And the first one is to my GitHub. And that's the github.com/edum. I would highly recommend you go there or go to the chat, the Slack channel where you can find the link and resource as well. There, I'm basically saying you should go there, download the PDF, which is on the mind map side, because you're going to need it in a couple of minutes when I go through those details. So the rest of the agenda basically are 3 things. I'm going to talk about definitions because words matter. So, that's a plug to you, Lillian. And also, we're going to talk a little bit about a problem, and that's on metrics and how to measure well and show value to our stakeholders. And the third part is basically the solution, where I'm going to use the intelligence cycle to provide value using metrics. Now, you're probably wondering, is this going to be yet another intelligence cycle presentation? Well, yes, it will be. So buckle up and enjoy the ride. So before we continue, I just want to make sure that everyone understands where I'm building my resources on. So I am basically standing on the shoulders of giants when it comes to today's topic. And I have to give credit where credit is due. So those who came before me really helped me expand on the subject of feedback and metrics. And that's specifically in the intelligence program we're using here at the Nordic Financial CERT. And it might be that what I'm showing you today, the process of doing the things that the other people have done might help you too. So first, I have to give a shout out to 2 fantastic cybersecurity professionals, Marika Chauvin and Tony Gidwani. I'm sorry if I butchered your last names, but I'm Norwegian, so I can get away with it. And they presented their take on how to do metrics at the SANS CTI Summit. I think it was 2019. And the link, you can also find that in the resource channel. A year or so later, another cybersecurity professional, a fantastic guy, he's also presenting here at the SANS Summit this year. He published his take on the works of Tony and Marika, and where he basically tried to operationalize the metrics items and how you can use them, and he used their work as a baseline. And he made his suggestions available in his GitHub. And you can find the links again in the resource channel on Slack. So the question both of these people, or both of these groups of people basically was trying to answer was, how can we show that our cyber threat intelligence program provides value to organization? Now that's a really tall order. And this is basically the core essence of what I will talk about today. They try to operationalize it. I will take a step back and I will try and talk more about the process. What can you do? Sorry, yes, I'm going to talk about what you can do and not how you can do it. That you basically have to figure out for yourself. And frankly, I have to say, with so many organizations lately that look at their cost centers and trying to figure out where they can save money, it has become, I think, even more important for those of us that work with CTI to figure out how we can show value of our CTI programs to the powers that be. So before we dive into answering that specific question, let's talk shortly about definitions. So how you all and I define certain words will vary. And it is only prudent then, I think, to clarify what I mean when I speak about some of the key premises of this presentation, like, for instance, metrics. According to definitions, this is a measure of quantitative and qualitative assessments, and is commonly used for comparing and tracking performance or production. So the goal here is to allow the business to monitor for changes in order to take action. And the value of metrics lies in decision support, reducing uncertainty, and also situational awareness or increasing awareness of an issue. And as a small curiosity, there are these three items of values is actually perfectly aligned with the purpose of intelligence. And that is, of course, no coincidence why I'm mentioning this today, but you'll understand that in a few moments. I also want to talk about what we call vanity metrics. And that's all those pieces of data that feel great when they go up, but basically make no real difference to the success of your cyber threat intel program. Any decisions made for management, uncertainty levels, if they have gone up or down, or either situational awareness. How many attacks you had last year is not helping perhaps so much to the management level today. And they look great, but they provide no real value to the stakeholder. And that's sort of my assumption then. A key element here is what's called gaming. And that's basically a core issue of metrics that we all witness all too often. And that's when they adapt metrics to fit the narrative rather than letting the results and the data tell a story. And this is the gaming problem, which really is, as I said, a fundamental issue. So according to Campbell's law, the more a metric is visible and used to make important decisions, the more it will be gamed or adapted to a set narrative. And this, of course, will distort and corrupt the exact process it was meant to monitor. So if we then look at Goodhart's law, anything that can be measured and rewarded will be gained. So those two have sort of set out their way of looking at it. So if we now look at an example, what if the manager of the Norwegian oil fund, which is responsible for 1.2 trillion US dollars each year, what if he was told by his cyber threat intel people that they successfully stopped 100,000 attacks, and I use those quotation marks in the air, last year? So let's suppose then that this same manager or anyone in his management team actually knew what they were doing and posed some really valid questions about those numbers. What really constitutes an attack? Does port scanning, is that an attack? Is vulnerability scanning an attack? Is every single phishing mail an attack? What about detections versus alerts? What is the false positive ratio here? So when we look at the numbers, 100,000 attacks, that's actually 273 attacks every day. Or as it says more, more than 1,000 of those was serious. That means, that's still 27 serious attacks every day. I do not envy the people who work then at their organization. So basically, I think there's something wrong here where someone has told this gentleman some interesting facts. So if the manager then, or anyone of his team, actually starts asking critical questions of the claim in this article, you will basically find yourself in a pretty bad situation where you have to defend the numbers you have. And I guess the point I'm making is that if you focus on value rather than volume, you will be in a better position to have an informed discussion with management and also defend your budgets. And not to forget, demonstrate the value you provide in protecting the organizations through your CTI program. I mean, the basic issue we have, if we do our job, then nothing happens. So we have to show value in a different way. So we need to frame the issue a little bit. And according to SANS, and I'm going to read out some numbers before I get to the what's on screen, but according to the SANS 2020 CTI survey, only 4% of the respondents had any sort of system in place to measure the value of their CTA program. However, in 2021, in the CTI survey of 2021, 38% of the respondents had some methods in place to measure effectiveness. However, although the organizations are measuring, right? 21% of the 2022 survey, 21% of those respondents basically said that they could not measure whether the CTI program was indeed useful and valuable to the organizations. To me, this is actually a huge problem. And I think you understand where I'm getting here. You really should be prepared when an organization starts asking questions about value. What is the value add of the cyber threat intel program? We're spending all this money. How is the CTI program helping the organization make better decisions? How is the CTI program enabling the organization to reduce the likelihood of an attacker successfully breaching the system? You have to have answers for those things. What about return of investment, ROI? What is the CTI program costing the organization, and how much money is the CTI function making? And we all know that not many CTI programs, if at all, make money, I guess, unless you're selling or billing for your services. So if you're not making any money, you should probably figure out a way to demonstrate how you're saving the organization money somehow. And if you do that, you need to be able to show how much the organization is saving and how you're contributing into that aspect. What about KPIs? They're going to ask you about key performance indicators. The organization probably want to know how it can measure this, how that this then can be put neatly into their spreadsheets so they can do their risk assessments. And I think if we talk about quantitative, then yes, you can probably provide them with some numbers and some data, and that's probably doable. But is that the most valuable? Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But if we talk about qualitative, it is not that straightforward. And I'll show you more about that later. So I'm not saying metrics are bad. What I'm saying is that metrics are good as long as they serve a purpose. They have to be used correctly and not gamed to show, quote unquote, a truth. And I guess another thing I think I need to clarify here, that I'm talking about a certain context. And remember when I said initially that I am working at the operational level, and I am talking about the cyber threat intelligence program, not just the product or process, specifically the entire program. And the program is the why we are here. And also, as I said initially, as I said just now also, I'm working at the operational level. And just as the previous speaker said, I'm supporting both the strategic and tactical. I'm the go-between. I'm translating requirements from strategic, try to operationalize those, and have the tactical and technical individuals help me with that, then translate the results back again into strategic speak, but also how to then show and demonstrate value of all the tasks and stuff we have done and all the intelligence we have generated. A key aspect, I think, and now we're moving into the intelligence world. A key aspect I think is really important, and that's the small little circle you see down on the bottom right corner, and that's cyber threat intelligence. I think what we all have experienced is that we work with cyber, and this particular field, the CTI field, is filled with technical-minded people who speak and know the technical aspect of doing cyber threat intel, but perhaps not the intelligence side. And as you can see of this model, I really love this model because to me, this shows that cyber threat intelligence is a subset of threat intelligence, which again is a subset of intelligence. So that means when we talk about cyber threat intelligence, we can actually learn quite a bit from the intelligence process, from the intelligence community, from the intelligence cycle. And lo and behold, now we're jumping into the intelligence cycle. And again, as you can see it in the bottom right corner, if you haven't found the link, I really, really urge you to go to my GitHub at github.com/errum, ERRUM. The link is also in the resource, the Summit resource channel. And there you can find a PDF, so you can download that. Now, a lot of you have seen the Intel cycle before. You have seen this probably in multiple stages in different formats. Some has 6 steps, some have, I've seen so many as 16 steps of the Intel cycle. I am using 4, and that's because that's what NATO is using, and I'm just following the NATO standard here. We have direction, and as you can see from direction, there's an arrow going down to collection, and then after collection, we can then start our analysis, and then we go to dissemination, and then we get feedback, and we start over again. When we look at the word RFI, request for information, someone is asking us questions. A stakeholder asks us questions. We figure out the what and the who and the why, and then we start collecting data, the data we're missing, we're collecting all the things that we need to do the analysis. Then we do analysis. Oh, we figure out we need more data. We collect more data. We start and continue our analysis while someone else is collecting more data. Maybe you're doing it and you're collecting more data. And then once you finish your product, then you go to dissemination. You're spreading it, you're sharing it, you're making it available, push or pull. And then, of course, you're getting feedback. And then you get feedback from a stakeholder who gives you suggestions on improving product, or you have to redo everything, or they're missing questions or new questions arise. So that's sort of how it works. The diamond in the middle, this is often what is missing in every talk I've ever seen, and that's the management part. There we have 2 words. One is IRM, Intelligence Requirement Management. The other is called CM, Collection Management. Those are 2 really, really important aspects of doing intelligence, because this is what is driving and giving the foundation for your production of intelligence. And also the yellow box direction, this is where you can define everything you need to do. And this is also giving, as the word is saying, the direction of your focus, why you're trying to answer certain questions, why you should focus on these tools, on these techniques, these analysis, and these type of sources to get your data. Now, as I said, most people talk about this going clockwise. However, in direction, there is a function called intelligence dialogue. This is where you sit down with your stakeholder and discuss what is it that you need and why. Who is the stakeholder? What is it that they really wants to know? What is it that when does she want it? Why does she want it? What type of product does she want? How does she want it delivered? All of those things you need, and then you go counterclockwise from once you know who's asking for what and why, you need to figure out what is the product I'm going to produce in order to deliver on the requirements. So you have to figure out what is the product, what is the analysis you have to do, what type of analysis and what type of biases do you have, what type of biases in all your data, and figure out which SATs, the structure, analytical techniques, etc. So all of those things you figure out after you know what you're doing and why. But before you can do analysis, you actually have to then figure out, well, what data do I have and what am I missing? And that's the gaps, right? So you have data, you're missing some data, you have to collect. And as you're collecting, everything into context in analysis, you know then, I need more data. So you start checking all the sources, which sources are you going to use? And during the intelligence dialogue, you have a discussion and a feedback loop with the stakeholder before you start collecting. I think most of us have fallen into the trap of just starting to collect data before we actually sit down and figure out what we're doing and why. So we need to go back to the stakeholder saying, these are the things that they have asked us to do. This is the function and the process we're supporting. Now, this is really key. We're also giving back, when they want it, what type of product, what it should contain, how I'm going to do this, and based on the feedback, we make adjustments. And I want to go back again and talk a little about the function, because this is basically the core value. if we understand who our stakeholders are, what they really want, what they are going to use it for, how they're going to use it, and then how can we adapt and also tailor both our products and our services to them, that's going to provide extreme value. So you might be asking now, so Freddy, why are we doing this? I have a key phrase, and that's the spend time to save time. If we can make sure we understand who our stakeholders are and what they will use our intelligence for in order to ensure we're maximizing the value of the intelligence we produce, we can then spend time in the beginning and actually spend more time we'd like to, just to make sure that we will save time in the end, because we're focusing on our efforts, we're focusing our collection, we're focusing our analysis, and also focusing and tailoring our dissemination to the stakeholder, and also gaining feedback from our stakeholders, of course. So there's this other thing I wanted to talk to. I just showed you the NATO standard, 4 steps. That's how you produce intelligence. The mind map you see here, which is huge, by the way, if you downloaded the PDF, you understand what I mean. And that's divided into 6 elements. The first element you see, the red in the top right corner, is basically management. This is helping you identify and prioritize your key stakeholders. This process will actually help you plan everything so you can operationalize it yourself, because all of you will have different requirements. And you can here do the dialogue and follow the steps and look at all the requirements and the value proposition of the entire CTI program. Why are you here? What are they expecting you to help with for the organization? Also help and discuss the strategic direction with goals and expectations. You can discuss fundings and budgets, maturity and growth. How can you grow the program over time? That's all the elements that goes into that red box over there. As I said, this is input to the entire CTI program, all the other steps. And this is actually the most valuable, because if you understand this, then you have broken the code, and I'll show you why in a moment. The next part is what I just showed you, and that's basically, sorry, I have to go back one. That's basically the intelligence dialogue part of direction, and that's broken down, as I already explained, the intelligence dialogue with your customers and clients on producing a product. And that's identifying and prioritizing the requirements for the product, defining the process in order to satisfy those requirements, and also identifying the people and the resources you need to produce and disseminate the finished intelligence. And this, as I said, is input to the intelligence process and the products. So the first one was the program overall, and this is just how you're going to solve a requirement and build a product and deliver it to the stakeholder, which are sometimes and very often 2 different things. Now, as I already mentioned, spending time to save time. So these 2 elements that I just talked about, the top right and the all the way to the right, feeds into what we call the feedback and metrics. Now, this is actually the most important part, and I really can't stress this enough. This is an excellent foundation to show value over a CTI program. This is key to understand why we are here, what is expected from us, how we can support our most important stakeholders. Remember, the first one was to identify the most important stakeholders, and the second one was to identify the most important questions. The value of each intelligence product potentially we potentially can deliver. And this is, as I already said, the input to the feedback loop and what we should measure, and that is the metrics, and that is really the core value. Now, as I said initially, both Marika and Tony and also Gert-Jan has operationalized this section, and I built out the entire process based on their work. And they're also talking about measures of performance and measures of effectiveness, which is, in many aspects, the qualitative versus quantitative. And Gert-Jan is also creating suggestions for metrics, and he's ranging it from starter to advanced. And what you will see when you go into the mind map and look at how to do feedback and metrics, this is basically gathering input, eliciting input from management and customers and clients. The first part of this blue section actually describes the steps and process of how to get all the feedback. And the second one shows how to generate metrics, and it's divided into 3 levels. The top level is the most value, but also the advanced, and this is mostly qualitative. This is basically discussing how has our intelligence improved our security posture? How has our intelligence contributed in saving money in terms of breach stopped or ransomware stopped, etc. In the possible value, the second level is intermediate, and that's a combination sometimes of qualitative and quantitative. And that's where you try to investigate what is it that we have done. We combine the number of reporting with the number of intelligence requirements, and have we satisfied them, yes or no? And what have they used the intelligence for? Now, the last one is the least value, but also the starter, where you can start. You start with the mostly quantitative. You try to calculate and show we have looked at the X amount of indicators. We have written X amount of reports. But as I've stated multiple times, the key is in the key value lies in the top one. Is the qualitative. How have our security posture improved, etc. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was basically giving you now the framework to use the mind map, go through the steps, and it's not meant for you to do each step. It's not meant for you to do everything. Pick and choose. Pick and choose to your maturity level, and then plan your future and plan how to grow. And yeah, that was it, I guess.